The wind cut through the quiet neighborhood like a forgotten sorrow, carrying with it the cold bite of a Christmas night that seemed to hold more darkness than light. Most homes glowed with warm lanterns, laughter spilling into the streets, but at the end of Maple Ridge Lane, in a small, weather-worn house, the silence was heartbreakingly deep. It was there that former Navy SEAL Ethan Cole stopped in his tracks, noticing something he had never expected on a night meant for togetherness: a widow sitting alone on her porch steps, her shoulders shaking, her two young children huddled beneath a thin blanket, trying to stop their teeth from chattering. Ethan wasn't the type to get startled easily. Years of missions had steeled his nerves, but something about this scene pierced through him like a memory he'd tried too long to bury. Backhand index pointing right. If you believe kindness still matters and second chances can change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps us bring more powerful stories to you. Ethan had returned to town just a week earlier, trying to rebuild a life that had fallen apart after too many nights filled with battle echoes and days where he felt like a ghost among the living. His therapist had told him to seek peace, to find a purpose beyond survival. He didn't know what that meant yet, but as he watched the woman gently wipe her tears with trembling fingers, he felt something shift inside him. Her posture told a story of exhaustion, of trying too hard for too long. Her name was Grace, though he didn't know it yet, and she had lost her husband 8 months earlier in a tragic accident that left her with bills she couldn't pay, a broken car, and 2 children who deserved a Christmas she simply couldn't give. The power had been shut off that afternoon. She had hoped the kids wouldn't notice. But children always do. Ethan's boots crunched on the frosted ground as he approached slowly, not wanting to startle them. The porch light was dead, but the glow of the moon was enough to show the weariness on her face. She wasn't crying the way people cry for attention or pity. Her tears were the kind that slipped out quietly, the kind a person tries to hide until they have no strength left. Ethan had seen that look before in war zones and disaster sites. People who stood strong for everyone else until their knees finally gave out. Grace was holding herself together for her children, and it was tearing her apart. Something inside Ethan, something fierce and protective, ignited. It reminded him of the first time he had pulled a wounded teammate out of the line of fire. The instinct to protect. To not let suffering stand in silence. In that moment, he understood something his therapist had been trying to tell him. Healing doesn't always come from fixing yourself. Sometimes, it comes from helping someone else stand. He took a breath, gathering the courage to disrupt her solitude, and stepped closer. The children looked up at him with fearful eyes, the kind that had learned too early that the world could be unkind. Grace straightened, trying to appear stronger than she felt, but Ethan could see her fingers trembling as she pulled the blanket tighter around the kids. He could sense the panic under her calm expression, the panic of a mother who didn't want a stranger seeing her at her weakest. He knelt in front of them, leveling himself with the children in a gesture of quiet respect. He spoke softly, asking nothing, offering nothing yet, just making sure they knew he came in peace. He noticed how thin the blanket was, how red their small noses were from the cold, how Grace had no coat on despite the freezing wind. She had probably given it to her kids earlier. Mothers did that, sacrifice layers, meals, warmth just to see their children safe for a moment longer. The weight of the scene pressed on Ethan until he felt his chest ache. His life had been a battlefield for so long, filled with missions where choices had to be sharp and fast. But here, in the silence of this Christmas night, was a different kind of mission, one that didn't demand weapons or strategy, only heart, and for the first time in a long time, he felt his heart beating for something that mattered. He stood slowly, extended his hand toward Grace and said the words that would change all their lives, "Come with me." She looked at him with hesitation, confusion, and a hint of fear, but also with a flicker of hope, faint but real. Something in Ethan's eyes must have told her he meant no harm, only help. And when her children looked at her, silently begging for warmth, for safety, for anything better than the cold porch they were sitting on, she placed her hand into his. Ethan led them to his truck, turned on the heater, and drove them to the small cabin he'd inherited from his grandfather, a quiet place surrounded by trees, where the world always seemed to breathe a little easier. He prepared hot cocoa, warmed blankets by the fire, and cooked a simple meal from what he had. The kids' eyes widened with every small act of kindness, their bodies relaxing slowly, as if they had forgotten what comfort felt like. Grace tried not to cry again, but tears slipped down anyway, this time from relief rather than despair. As the night stretched on, Ethan fixed them a makeshift Christmas, decorating his old cabin with strings of lights he hadn't touched in years, pulling out his grandfather's carved wooden ornaments, and placing a small gift for each child under a spruce branch he fashioned into a tree. The children laughed for the first time in months. Grace sat near the fire, her hands wrapped around the warm mug, watching Ethan with a gratitude she couldn't put into words, and in that soft glow of firelight and healing, something unspoken formed between them, a promise of hope, a beginning neither had expected. Backhand index pointing right. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps us bring more stories that remind the world of compassion. Before the final moment of the story, here's a special request, speech balloon comment, kindness lives. If you believe one act of compassion can change a life. By sunrise, their lives had already begun to change. Grace felt strength returning. Her children felt safe again. And Ethan, the man who once couldn't find his purpose, found it shining right in front of him, in the smiles he helped restore, in the warmth he offered, and in the quiet truth that sometimes, saving others is how you save yourself.